Attention chiropractors, slayers of subluxation, unleashers of the imprisoned impulse. I am Dr. Anthony Pellegrino from ChiroEdge, and welcome to this week's episode of the Chiropractic Research Breakdown, where each week we break down the most relevant chiropractic science and philosophy to empower you with the ammo and certainty necessary to change your community from the inside out. I am here now, and I am really excited. Those of you guys who have followed the podcast, the Chiropractic Research Breakdown, or been on the ChiroEdge Facebook page, have seen me be critical of many of those who do research in our profession for not using the term subluxation, for using terms like spinal manipulation versus adjustment, for using terms like spinal dysfunction versus subluxation. And the implications of that being that physical therapists, occupational therapists, medical doctors, massage therapists can all do manual therapy. They can feel a release in a joint, and it's not the same as subluxation. It empowers metapractors to think that we are less than what we are. I've been in particular critical of, I'm just going to come right out and say, Heidi Haavik. And the reason I've been so critical is because I've always wanted to love her research so much, because her view and her study of the nervous system is she does so much. And it's like, does so much good for our profession. And I think that little bit would just do so much more. So I've had episodes in the past where I admit I've called her out. I don't know her. She's done way more for our profession than I ever have. But I still think that it's something that's important. I mean, what have I published? Case studies? And she's out there doing randomized control trials and looking at outcome measures that I don't even understand. So like, who the heck am I to do that? But I have, because I think that it's important. So a bunch of people sent me her most recent research on stroke recovery. And of course, I looked at it, went through it, and we made it into a patient newsletter. But I wasn't really excited about it at first until I really sat down and analyzed it. And Dr. Haavik, I'm here publicly saying that I take back now, after having read this beautiful piece of paper, I take back everything that I said. Now, you don't know who I am. I am small potatoes. Oh, my wife's Irish. She loves fries. But I am small potatoes compared to everything that you've done, so it doesn't even matter that I take it back. But I still want you to know that I'm sorry, and thank you for putting these words onto this paper. We're going to go through it now. If any of you guys have a close relationship with Dr. Haavik, if you think that she might want to come on here and talk about research like this, and talk about mechanisms, and talk about the stuff that's at a higher level that I don't even understand really, and would love to understand better, and would love to take it and break it down to some of us who are just more into our practice, more into clinically relevant, and you want to listen to this podcast so we can take that research and break it down into a way that you can understand, so that you can go and take that and break it down in a way that your community understands. If you guys think that she would want to come on here, please let her know. I will reach out to her. We'll have her on here. I don't expect it to happen, but it would be pretty cool. All right. So after my confessional, let's dive into scientific reports from the journal Nature. The effects of a single session of chiropractic care on strength, cortical drive, and spinal excitability in stroke patients. Now, every other article I've read from her, we say things like spinal dysfunction, we say things like chiropractic manipulative therapy or spinal manipulative therapy, but this just says chiropractic care. So I should have known right from the get-go that maybe this was going to be a little bit different. But it took me going in to see. I am not going to do her a disservice of breaking it down for you. I'm going to read to you a couple paragraphs from this introduction section. I hope that that's okay. Once again, we're looking at recovery in individuals following stroke. Numerous rehabilitative approaches have been shown to promote motor recovery after a stroke. These include physical therapy, motor relearning, and brain-computer interface-based approaches, amongst others. These approaches generally involve long-term treatment as a part of a large rehabilitation team. Advanced strategies are constantly being developed and tested in an attempt to improve long-term outcomes for stroke survivors. One possible intervention that may improve post-stroke motor recovery, but has to date not been adequately tested, is chiropractic care. Okay, I agree so far. Here we go. Just like chiropractic, and I'm sorry, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to do this, guys. Chiropractic care involves a holistic approach to health with a particular focus on the relationship between the spine and the nervous system. Traditionally, the main focus of chiropractic care has been the location, analysis, and correction of vertebral subluxations. Did I just read an article in Nature's Scientific Reports that said that traditionally the main focus of chiropractic care has been the location, analysis, and correction of vertebral subluxation? Did I just read that? Okay, let's go first. I might have to unbutton this shirt a little bit. It's getting hot. Vertebral subluxations are recognized as a biomechanical lesion of the spine by the World Health Organization. They have been defined as a self-perpetuating central segmental motor control problem that involves a joint, such as a vertebral motion segment that is not moving appropriately, resulting in ongoing maladaptive neuroplastic changes that interfere with the central nervous system's ability to self-regulate, self-organize, adapt, repair, and heal. Did Heidi Haavik just describe the disafferentation model of subluxation in one sentence? Because I think that just happened. An improperly moving segment, motion segment, sends improper afferent information from the spine to the brain, which results in, she's saying, long-term cortical plastic changes, not just temporarily, but actually changing the structure and function of the brain because it's receiving improper information. This is nature.com/scientific reports. Right up here on the headline. Whew. Let's keep going. Chiropractors identify vertebral subluxations using a combination of pathophysiologic indicators of spinal dysfunction and then correct them using a variety of manual techniques, the most common being of specific high-velocity, low-amplitude adjustments that are delivered by hand to the subluxated spinal segments. Specific high velocity, low amplitude adjustments to the subluxated spinal segment. Over the past 2 decades, numerous research studies have shown that chiropractic care can significantly influence central neural function. It has been hypothesized that the central neural plastic changes that are observed following chiropractic care may be due to improvements in spinal function associated with the correction of vertebral subluxations. Studies have shown changes in somatosensory processing, sensory motor integration, and motor control following as little as a single session of chiropractic care. I'm sorry for getting emotional on this podcast, but that was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen in my life. Thank you, Dr. Haavik. What they did was they took volunteers, they took stroke patients who had suffered a stroke at least 12 weeks prior and had ongoing problems with plantar flexion and muscle weakness, but could contract on demand, although they did experience weakness. They were ineligible to participate if they were not subluxated, which is standard. This is one of the things we were talking about in the last episode about epidemiological research. They had to throw out people who weren't subluxated. They assessed for subluxation using static palpation, muscle palpation, and motion palpation. Honestly, at this point, I am cool with that being the evaluation. We got static, we're feeling for facilitation of muscles, we are assessing for motion, we're pounding on high spots but I don't care at this point. I just don't. I'm too excited. They did that, and also they adjusted them in the subluxated areas versus a control group, and the control group was that they did an examination and they did an adjustment setup, and they just didn't contact the specific subluxated vertebra. They measured pre and post for absolute maximal force of contraction of the ankle plantar flexors, change in H reflex a measure of spinal excitability, and change in V wave amplitude, a measure of cortical drive. 12 patients were enrolled in the study. The experimental group received one adjustment wherever necessary. If subluxation indicators did not clear on a post-check, they rethrusted and analyzed again to make sure that the indicators of subluxation cleared. Results. There was a significant increase in plantar flexion maximal force of contraction. The H reflex, which was a measurement of spinal excitability, did not change. The V wave, or it did change, but it was not statistically significant. And because she's a responsible researcher and understands how to actually write research, unlike some articles we've reviewed previously, she mentioned that yes, it did improve, but no, it was not statistically significant. And that's how you do it if you're a scientist. She also noted that there was changes in V wave amplitude, which is a measure of cortical drive, but that was also not statistically significant. So the key findings was, and I quote, in a group of chiropractic stroke patients with lower limb muscle weakness, plantar flexion muscle strength increased on average 64% following a chiropractic care session, and changes in muscle strength appear to be modulated by cortical factors as opposed to the modulation at the spinal level. So what she's noting is that based off of these measurements that she took, statistically significant was the fact that it looked as though there was brain control changes that was influencing the change in the actual muscle output. This is relevant clinically because one of the major issues that people have with recovery post-stroke is muscle weakness. And they're seeing they adjusted the spine, right? Not extremity, but the spine, and saw plantar flexion changed immediately post-spinal adjustment. Recovery from stroke is mainly due to cortical plastic reorganization in the early phases of rehabilitation. Basically, the ability for the brain to recover and the ability for the brain to reorganize is what allows us to recover from a stroke. Changes in neural plasticity are also important in stroke recovery. Vertebral subluxations are central motor control problems that result in ongoing maladaptive neuroplastic changes in central nervous system. Essentially, when the spine is subluxated, it sends aberrant proprioceptive and nociceptive information up to the brain, which can result, if they're long enough, in actual change in the function of the brain. When we correct that subluxation immediately, that plastic change begins reorganizing and that person is better off if they're recovering from a stroke, but also we know everyone is. So this is important. This is really important. We're going to continue to see research out like this from this crew that look not at a specific necessarily symptom, but look at the changes in brain plasticity and changes in brain function, function following chiropractic care, both short and long term. What's important here is that this is a very small sample size. I am assuming that with these changes, I'm hoping that they're able to get more funding in order to do a larger sample size here, and we can see those H reflex and V wave changes not only happen on paper, but also statistically significant as well. If you guys are following this, it's because you care, and that makes me happy. You can get this information like this for your practice in patient newsletter format by visiting us at ChiroEdgeMedia.com. Please join us there. If not, make sure you join us in the Subluxation Slayers Facebook group. You can find that at facebook.com/group/Subluxation Slayers, or you can find it on a link from the ChiroEdge page. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Pellegrino from ChiroEdge. Hope you guys have a great day. Keep slaying those subluxations. I love you all.